Bigfoot Collectors Club with Michael and Riley. I know a story of high strangeness or two. Let's do this.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Bigfoot Collectors Club, the show where we talk about a number of paranormal topics like missing time, a phenomenon you will experience after listening to this episode. I'm your host, Michael McMillan. With me always is your ultra-terrestrial producer,
Riley Bray.
Hi, Riley.
Hi, Michael.
Happy New Year again.
Yeah, we did it again.
We did it again.
Still here.
New year, new you.
Yeah.
I like the new locks.
Thank you. Yeah, I got my Ice Prince blonde back. I'm ready for winter. Yes.
Let's bring it on. Speaking of bringing it on, let's bring in our guest right at the top of the show. Listen, if you've been a long time listener of BCC, you already know him. You love him. From What's Up Weirdo and Weird Lectures, please welcome back to the virtual clubhouse, paranormal investigator, author, producer, on-camera personality. I'm going to say,
rocker.
Yeah, punk rocker. Exactly. I mean, so many hyphenates. We don't have enough room for them all. JOHN E.L. Tenney is with us. Hi, John.
Hi, Michael. Hi, Riley.
Hi, John.
How are you, man? It's so good to talk to you.
Oh, the end of the year already?
I know. For everyone listening at home, we are in the time machine here, okay? It's 2025 for you, but it's still 2024 for us. But we're literally time traveling to talk to you right now.
We're assuming you're all still here.
Yeah.
I was watching an recent interview with someone, and they said, they were talking about the UFO phenomenon, and they said, you know, when the original congressional hearings on UFOs happened, you know, like 20 or 30 years ago, and he didn't realize that he was talking about the 1960s. Like, it wasn't 20 or 30. In his brain, it was 20 or 30 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
I do that too, though. Like, I think about, someone asked me about researching, and I said, oh yeah, when I did my first lecture 34 years ago, like,
Yikes.
That's insane.
Whoa.
What age do both of you think you are inside? Like what age are you?
32.
Yeah.
I'd go like either like 6 million or like 29.
Yeah, I think I think 32, 33 is probably good, because when I think about like, I still feel 27. I'm like, well, then when I think about how I actually was at 27, I feel like I have grown up a little bit since then. But I feel like I have the heart and the energy that I did when I was 27 years old for the most part. Maybe not all of the energy, but like internally, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm a more mellowed out version of my 27-year-old self.
I realized actually today, this is funny that you bring this up. I was walking up to my upstairs office, and I was carrying an X-Acto knife. So I was walking really slowly, walking up the stairs, because I was like afraid of falling and having the X-Acto knife like jab me somewhere and kill me.
Yeah.
And then I thought back to when I was in a band in 1990, and for a photo shoot, I jumped out the window of a 3-story building.
Oh,
and I was like,
Oh my God.
and I was like, oh, like my danger sensors have really changed since I was 20 years old.
Yeah, how many times did you just run up and downstairs with an X-Acto knife and not even think twice about it?
Yeah, now I'm slowly walking the steps, like making sure it's not getting near me.
It is funny because if you think about it, like, you are much less concerned about getting injured as a young person, and you get injured way more as a young person, I feel like.
Definitely,
Like the injuries that we have now, it's just like, oh, I lifted the seat of the toilet and my back hurts now.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
man. The things that I used to do on a snowboard that I would not even consider now. It's like, oh, a cliff. I should jump off that.
Oh, Riley just wants to tell everybody he can shred some pow-pow.
No, he could, past tense.
I mean, I think about like playing shows and how many times like I would drop my guitar and just jump off the stage into a crowd of people.
Yeah.
Like there's no way I'd do that now.
No, yeah, just launch yourself like it means nothing.
Yeah. And I mean, it was usually a crowd of like, when I say crowd, I'm being like, it was 25 people.
Right, yeah.
There's a
And they're all
high
like,
percentage you're
"Pretty
going to hit
sick,
some
pretty sick."
concrete.
Oh, many times my knees just whacked the floor before. I mean, yeah.
Now,
Oh,
Tenney,
man.
before we get into all the paranormal stuff, were you ever a mosh guy? Did you get in the mosh pit ever?
Yeah, I mean, at the time in the 80s, like, it wasn't moshing, it was just slam dancing. So
Uh-huh.
there wasn't, I mean, it was just people going insane. There wasn't even really a pit. It was just the whole crowd was pushing and shoving each other and bouncing up and down and bouncing off of each other. But I do remember when it became like people were standing at the edge of the pit, and then there were guys inside that were just, you know, punching each other and knocking each other down.
Oh my
I didn't want to be a
Do
part of
this.
that. But
No.
I remember coming home a lot of times like bruised up from shows.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well,
I once danced off a stage. I had my eyes closed and
Kelsey
I
Grammer style?
I just was like vibing so hard, and I just went right off the front of the stage, and somehow like Wile E. Coyote style, like realized I was in the air in the middle, and I don't know how I did it, but I tucked forward and I just did like a somersault roll as I landed, and just kept playing, and it was like, now I'm on the ground. Okay, it was just like,
Made it look intentional.
it was very much not. Yeah.
All right. Well, before we get into it, Riley, why don't we nominate our 5-star Club Scout of the Week? This is a friend who's given us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. It gets the show to more listeners like ya.
Okay, well, this is from Delphine Violets.
Ooh.
And they say, one of my favorite podcasts. These boys are great. I love to listen and get to explore theories and concepts I've never thought to fathom before, leading me to the question, if we think about reality and life as a huge scale of environments, would the elemental molecules and cellular structures exist as sentient beings in their own lives and environments? It's these kind of scales that make answering questions like, what is an environment and what is a watershed, so hard to answer, because the same compartments of these can exist at so many scales, being one and the same, but also different. That is one of our 5 stars. That is one of our most esoteric reviews to date.
What a perfect review for a Tenney episode, too.
Mm-hmm,
Wait, let's go back and say this again. If we think about reality, what did they say?
So what they're talking about, I guess, the scales and levels of reality, and is it sentient on every level down to the molecular level, I think is what they're getting at. Are we conscious components of a conscious reality, I think is what they're talking about here.
Yeah, no, Tenney, you're nodding your head a lot.
Yeah, I know that you guys wanted to talk about ESP and stuff like
We'll get
later
to that.
on. But yeah, I mean, I maybe 2 weeks ago was looking through some research about like conscious realities and stuff. And so I did this real deep dive into animals that go through metamorphosis.
Mm-hmm.
And a caterpillar can be trained to not go to certain scents. And then when it goes into chrysalis form, you know, a caterpillar completely dissolves down to its base level. Nothing of the caterpillar remains in caterpillar form. Even
It's
the
not
neurons,
just like the caterpillar grows wings in there.
it becomes literally, it just becomes new goo filled with proteins. And when the butterfly forms, it remembers the scent that the caterpillar was trained to not like.
Wow.
So somehow the memory, even though the neurons have been completely separated, completely refashioned, this new thing created out of that old thing it was remembers. So like, does the memory exist not in its cellular structure, but in that kind of like speculative larger consciousness?
Whoa.
That's
Like it goes to the
incredible.
cloud and then comes back down?
Yeah.
Whew. Well, who's training these caterpillars?
There are, listen, it's a
Is this like someone with a little caterpillar fanny pack and they're
it's
giving them little
easy-
caterpillar
Just
treats?
farting on caterpillars. and
It's
they're
a
like, "Ooh,
very
no."
easy rabbit hole to go down this research because there are very few entomologists who study the neural structures of bugs. Like there's only like 16 people in the world that study it, but they don't know how it happens because if memories are contained in the correlates of our synaptic structures, that's why they studied it, because when the synaptic structures break down and all of the bonds are loosened, then when it reforms into a new thing, how does it remember from what it was before? The brain doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Which means the memory has to be somewhere else.
Can it just be in the cells? Can it be
No,
down in the
because
goo?
even the cell, I mean, there's no more cells. There's complete cellular breakdown. It goes down to like the DNA like the tiniest of particles.
Well, then it's got to be in that.
It's
got to be in the DNA.
But then what are the implications of that about like memory within your DNA? And then you get into all that stuff people talk about like inherited trauma and all these things where it's like whatever your ancestors have been through is still in you on some level.
Yep.
Yeah,
I think that's true to a degree.
I don't know if you guys watch Dune or into Dune or anything.
Oh, hell yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the whole concept of like the Bene Gesserit. They can access the cellular memory of all of their past ancestors.
Right. Yeah.
So maybe there's something in that.
Could be. John, let's access your memories of 2024, shall we?
Yeah.
I know people are they've had enough of the best of 2020 list, or 2024 list, but you brought this up before we recorded, and funnily enough, this was a topic that I almost pitched to you, and you pitched it to me and Riley, which is, what are the best cases that you investigated, paranormal, cryptid, UFO? I don't know how you want to categorize these things, but what are your like weirdest encounters or weirdest cases of 2024?
Yeah, so I was working on it, putting them together for the end of the year, and the show came up, perfect timing. But these are like in my brain and in my notes what I call the formanauts. Like they don't make any sense. They don't really apply to extraterrestrial encounters. Maybe they're interdimensional beings, but this is my top 8 for 2024.
Let's go.
All right.
Some of the information I can't, it's private people's information, so I've broken it down without getting
great
them,
You can give them like character names if you want.
Sure. So February 10th, Saturday, 4:35 p.m. in Emmett County, Michigan, which is kind of northwest upper Michigan, as husband and wife on a beach, and they saw a rabbit man.
I'm out. I'm done. I don't want to look at this anymore.
None of this Donnie Darko fucking
done.
Nope.
They saw what seemed to be a naked man or wearing a flesh-colored bodysuit because there was no genitalia, but with the structure, a masculine structure, and then 2 large either antennae or ears coming up from the top of its head. And it was holding in its hand something that looked like a glowing small beach ball.
Okay, you're blowing my mind. Keep going. I'll tell you why in a minute.
And when at first they thought it was just a man wearing like kind of like funny novelty bunny ears because he was off at a distance. And they realized that he was facing away. And the husband laughed because he thought it was somebody in a silly costume. And when the husband laughed, the thing turned around and started to walk toward them. And when they saw that it wasn't a man, but it had these like solid antenna or ears coming up from its head, the wife screamed and it ran into the water of the lake and disappeared underneath the water.
Whoa.
What?
Yeah.
Whoa.
What did they contacted you about this?
Yep,
And
they reached out to a few people and they eventually got to me.
What did they think they saw? What did their gut tell them?
The husband has himself convinced that it was a person just in a costume.
Okay.
The wife finds his understanding of that to not be true, that he's trying to cope with it in a weird way, because she said the way it ran into the water without resistance. Like it was not just running into the water, but as it got deeper into the water, she said it was like dissolving because it wasn't pushing water forward in front of it. So it was dissolving as it went into the water until the tops of the antenna or ears just disappeared right beneath the surface.
What?
And how long did they stick around after it went in the water? Like, and it just never came back up? Like,
when the wife screamed and it started to run into the water, they immediately ran. And she said she saw the tops of the ears disappearing into the water by kind of looking back over her shoulder as they were departing. The husband didn't look back at all. He saw it starting to go into the water. So the whole encounter maybe lasts 3 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes.
Wow.
So what do you think it was?
Listen, the reason I picked these is because I got no clue what any of these things are, and they're wild.
Yeah.
That reminds me of a story that Rob Christofferson told us when he was on the show, Riley, back in, when was this? Maybe April of last year. And he talked from his personal paranormal history was he was driving to work in Connecticut and he saw what looked to be like a lizard man running in a field alongside the road.
I remember this, yeah.
And in that story, the lizard guy, he had like a human face, but like a scaly lizard body and tail. So his like face wasn't fully reptilian. And he said that it was carrying what looked like a glowing golden egg in its hands. So that correlation of the rabbit guy holding a glowing orb and this reptilian guy holding what he thought looked like an egg or something, that rings a bell. I'm like, I've kind of heard this story before.
Yeah.
And it was broad daylight, and I can't remember how the encounter ended. I think he drove past and then, circled back and it was gone. But
yeah, this was at 4:35, so I mean, it's middle of the day,
Jeez Louise, that is creepy as fuck.
So Rabbit Man.
Rabbit Man.
Rabbit Man, number 8.
With orb.
They're only getting weirder from here.
Like I said, I picked them out. So this is an April 22nd. That was a Monday in La Paz County, Arizona, which is the west side of Arizona. 2 best friends, both male, were driving on the road, and they stopped because there was a cactus in the road. And it was motioning to another cactus, which was on the side of the road. And they...
That is cartoon.
This cactus, what they said were cacti, met up in the middle of the road, stood there for a second, and then moved off to the side of the road, like extremely quick. And then they slowly pulled their cars up to where the 2 cacti had gone off to the other side of the road. And they could see what they thought were the 2, but much further away on the side of like a little hill.
Whoa.
Still moving.
Are we talking like saguaro, like arms up on the sides kind of thing? Of course.
Yep.
Wow.
Weird.
Yeah. So that was at 2:00 in the afternoon too. So broad
Tenney,
daylight.
Let me interject for quick.
Really quickly before you interject. They didn't walk. They bounced. One stopped and waited. They both bounced away quickly.
It's a cartoon.
Wild.
So wild. Little bouncing cactus.
Have you seen this phenomenon of like trees like waving on their own?
Yeah.
Like without any wind.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny.
You want me to send you a video of mine?
Yeah, dude, go ahead. It's funny because it happened in my sister's backyard. Mm-hmm. And I remember her telling me about it kind of sheepishly. And then I was like, well, that's weird. It must have been the wind or something, And then I was in her backyard in the evening, and one of her pine trees, there's no wind, one limb on it just starts to go wave. Hello. It just starts waving back and forth as if it was waving at me. Yeah. And I thought about that yesterday for some reason, and I started looking up videos, and I found videos of like women who will go and hug and talk to a tree, and then they'll be like, okay, it's gonna respond, and like one branch starts waving back and forth rapidly as she's like hugging the tree without shaking it. I'm like, she's already done hugging, and then the tree responds.
Yeah, my family's property up in northern Michigan, I always talk about the trees because I have a good relationship with them. And I have lots of video of, because I've talked to those trees since I was a little kid. And the most recent one was probably 3 years ago when I was up there visiting my dad. And I was just talking to the trees, and this one little branch comes out from behind one of the larger tree trunks, and it kind of waves at me. And I said, okay, bye. And I wave back at it. And then it comes back out and it waves again. and then it goes back behind the tree. And it's the only thing moving in the frame.
Whoa.
Isn't it weird that like people don't talk to trees? And
It
if like
honestly
we
is,
all just
yeah.
talk to trees, that maybe like within 5 minutes, everyone would realize that they can actually communicate with us.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
trees are like, what's the deal? These little monkeys used to talk to us all the time. They're all running
Yep,
around.
they used to live in us and
Oh,
create
They've
homes in
lost
us.
their
and-
way.
makes me sad.
The other thing too that I've talked about before, I don't know if I've ever talked about it on here, but when I was going, my dad has trail cams that he'll leave up for like 6 months, and then they've got like 4,000 photographs on them. So he'll just sit and watch like 4,000 images of squirrels and bear and deer and stuff eating. So he had me download a bunch of them. This is years ago. He had me download a bunch of them, and I was kind of scrubbing through them, going really fast. So it almost looked like a flip book.
Mm-hmm.
And I was flipping through, like I see this burst of sunlight in one. And so I rewind back, and in like 200 of the photographs, you can see that there's this, 6-inch in diameter tree in the background. And then in this one photograph, it's gone and the sunlight can come through. And then in the next photograph, it's back, and it's back for the rest of the 1,000 photographs. But in one frame, the tree is not there.
Huh.
Where did it go?
Where did it go?
Another dimension.
It's not like an optical illusion. Like the tree
Nope.
is not there.
The tree's not there.
There are those stories of walking trees as well.
Oh, yeah.
I think actually, like, aren't walking trees like a real, like a scientifically proven thing that like certain trees move?
I think trees can move, yes.
So
But
bizarre.
not like be in one
Not like-
picture and then 2 hours
Yeah.
later it's back.
hiking up their skirt and going on tiptoes.
Unless it's,
And
unless it's two cacti jumping across the road.
yeah.
Socratia exorhiza palm tree is called the walking tree because it can move across the forest by growing new roots and shifting its weight.
Cool.
The walking
Love it.
palm
Pulling
tree.
from underground. I love
Yeah.
that. That makes sense.
They can move up to 20 meters per year.
Oh, wow.
That's pretty cool.
That's
That is
fast
pretty cool.
for
Yeah.
a tree.
For a tree, yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna do 6. I'm skipping over 6 really fast because it's just a deer man encounter.
Oh, that's all.
Just a deer man.
Just a deer man. We've heard it all before.
Upright walking deer with antlers, seen in Branch County, Michigan in May. Let's go to July 14th, Sunday, Owen County, Indiana at 2:30 in the afternoon. Family, mom, dad, 2 daughters at McCormick Creek State Park. The entire family experienced about a half a dozen little people that they kept seeing throughout the state park. The father described them as being the size of Star Wars or G.I. Joe figures.
So we're talking
Oh,
3
really
3/4
tiny.
inch classic
Yeah.
Kenner size
Yep.
figures here.
Yep. And they would see them running across the tops of rocks underneath trees. They'd chase after them. They'd vanish. They'd see them later in the day, and they could hear them chirping to each other. They said that it sounded like bird songs, but faster.
Whoa. That's awesome. Where is this? In Indiana?
Indiana, Owen County at McCormick Creek State Park.
Okay, I want to go there. Have you been there? Have you driven
I
out?
have not.
Oh, dude,
have not.
let's go. I want to find the little people of McCormick Creek State Park in Indiana.
That
Yep,
reminds
and
me
one of the
the
daughters said that they were dressed like little cavemen.
Whoa.
little tiny loincloths,
Little-
slayed little miniature tigers. and-
Squirrel hide and mouse fur, maybe?
Right? Acorn cap hat.
They're like little
Wow.
brownies.
Yeah.
That reminds me of the Hawaiian mythology of the Menehune.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
The like little people that live in the jungles there, and they're little sort of mischievous spirits that'll either help you or hinder you depending on what they think of you.
Yeah, the
Dude.
last time I went to Hawaii, Riley, they were doing construction at the airport, and they had like part of the branding for the construction at the airport was please excuse the Menehune while they do their thing.
That's
And
great. I
like
love
wherever
that.
there was construction going on, they had like little cartoon people.
I love that.
I saw
just
that
lean
when I
into
was
it.
there too.
Yeah.
That's great.
So we're on 4 now.
Yes.
Deer Man was boring. So
Yep. Well, I'm skipping 4 too. 4 is a Bigfoot sighting, but the only reason I put it down is because it was 2 Bigfoot,
where?
and one was green and one was pink.
Oh hell yeah!
Whoa.
Let's go.
So this
But
is
just
the wicked,
traditional-
this is the wicked branding.
It
Bigfoot.
is a
That
you know what?
budget just
Viral
keeps
marketing.
going. Wow.
Yeah, so that was at 6:45 in Texas, Hemphill County. Yeah, so it was 2 women. They saw 2 Bigfoot-like creatures, but one was green and one was pink.
What in what terrain? Was it like woods?
They were in a car. They saw them off the side of the road.
Weird.
But bright enough. The pink was bright enough to be noticed. The green one was seen second. The pink
Okay.
one was the one that caught their attention.
Cotton candy Bigfoot.
Cotton candy Bigfoot. So yeah, okay. So then this is Iosco County, Michigan in August. 2 women on foot Sunday morning, 10:30 a.m. They saw something run through the woods, and they described it as short, fat, and round like a old aluminum garbage can, but covered with fur and with legs.
Huh.
Okay.
So like a hairy little cylinder on legs.
Yeah, hairy cylinder with legs covered in fur.
That sounds like the hairy dwarves of Venezuela, kind of, because they said that they seemed metallic with fur as well.
They stressed that it was metallic. They said like an aluminum garbage can size.
The shape and size, yeah.
Cool. Ooh, aluminum garbage cans. How big is that? Like, are we talking like the R2D2 style aluminum garbage
think
cans?
so.
I'd say about that size, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little furry R2.
I love that.
But-
That sounds
but still,
cute.
Still like a little fat thing, and they didn't see any arms. They knew it had legs because they could see it running,
And no face.
but they couldn't see a face either.
Wild.
I love it. I love stuff like that.
Me
because
too.
What the hell is that? Like, is it a baby Bigfoot? Is it like what the fuck is it?
This. I mean, all of these sound, and I know we've said this on the show, probably even speaking with you before, but like these sound like classic, like John Keel type high strangeness, like these little microcosmic encounters of things like the tin cans in the middle of the road in Minnesota that were sentient tin cans outside a rocket ship, like these one-off weird little things that nobody has any explanation before.
That's the reason I picked these ones, because I get a lot of Bigfoot sightings, Dogman sightings, that type of stuff, and that is pretty common. It's every now and then though, like the women that saw the 2 the green and the pink Bigfoot, like they contacted me just because it was a Bigfoot sighting, and like they didn't even really like, it was a side note to them of the color, like they were like, oh well, it was kind of pink, like that just kind of came up naturally. They wanted to just so I wonder a lot of times when you read reports about creature encounters, how many people are afraid to talk about how fucking weird it is. Sorry, am I allowed to swear? I forgot.
Of course.
Yeah.
Please.
So I think that some people will hold back on their high strangeness encounters and try and fit it into something,
Sure. Yeah. So this is already crazy enough for me to say that I saw this, let alone that it was pink and had a green buddy with it. Yeah.
I mean, there could, I'm like, maybe there's some algae that they're eating in the area that like turns their pigment or their fur,
Yeah.
Or they're caked in some sort of algae.
Bigfoot
Maybe they came out of a pond.
bioluminescence,
I don't know.
Yeah. Or the other thing is like, if is it pink, or again, like you said, is it algae? It's in Texas. I don't know it's northern Texas. I don't know, like it's because it's something rolled in dirt or dust, and it's just the way the light is reflecting off of it, so. But I love that there was a green one and a pink one.
Me too.
Number 2. Are you ready for this?
No
You didn't
complaints for me.
We're getting into it.
You didn't like Rabbit Man.
Oh, God.
Are you ready for this one?
Yeah.
All right. Florida, Lee County, which is the west coast. It's on the Gulf of Mexico. 2 younger men on foot near a creek. They thought that they saw a small one-man campsite tent, but then it stood up on its hind legs, and they realized that it was a giant shell on this thing's back.
Whoa.
And so they called it a turtle man.
Okay, I like Turtle Man. I'm actually not scared of Turtle Man.
And they started to call out to it, and they were on the kind of banks of a creek, and it went back down onto all fours and just slid beneath the water.
Whoa.
How do you do? Don't mind me. I just picture him with a little bowler cap and like just a collar and a tie, no shirt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is so weird.
And they wanted to stress that so it wasn't like a rounded turtle shell back. It was like, you've seen turtle shells that have points on them.
Yep.
That's why they thought it was a tent when they first saw it. It almost looked like someone had like put little poles underneath fabric, but then it reared itself up on its hind legs, seemed to have the shape of a man, or at least something with arms and legs, and a head, a bump near the top where a head would be, and then it went back down on its belly and it slid into the water.
Now, Tenney, this is Florida. And we know that Florida has a lot of eccentric characters. Can we rule out that this is just a man who loves turtles so much he's constructed a turtle costume for himself and he's just living among the turtles now?
It's very possible.
And like, I'm a turtle. So
it's very possible.
Why would I want to be part of society when I can be a turtle?
They stood on the banks of the creek for a while and didn't see him come back up to the top. So This is a guy that's into it. Maybe he's got scuba tanks underneath his turtle man shell or something.
That's what he's hiding under there.
Right there. Yeah.
You know what's really interesting when I do these cases? So like that case in particular, they'll tell me where they were, and it's so funny because you think to yourself like they've got to be making all this up, right? And then because we have the technology that we have, like I can Google Earth like right to where they were. And I'm like, oh yeah. So why would they they must have been at this place. It's a real place. Like I can find the exact location and see exactly kind of what they were seeing in the environment. What in the world would make them want to make up this story?
Well, and the detail in it too, like the shape of the shell it's those little details that always go, that's the ring of truth, where what is it that catches their attention and weirds them out beyond like, I saw a turtle man. They're like, when they're describing the shape of the shell, that feels really specific. And why would you come up with that particular detail if you're making up this story?
100%. Most people, if they were making up a story, would say we were walking along creek and we saw a turtle man and then he dived into the water. But to have like this opening part of the story of like we were walking along the creek and we saw this weird tent on the other side of the creek and we didn't know anybody would be camping over there, and like that part is, if you're making up a story, you're doing a really good job by coming up with the precursor to the story, you know?
Right.
If you were just making shit up, you just say whatever.
Yeah. I got
questions.
questions.
It's like the weirdness of it lends credence to the believability of it. It's because it is so outlandish. That it's like, why and how would you even arrive at that?
It's like when you're in writing class and they talk about like writing like second level dialogue, you know what I mean? Where it's like, don't just say, I want a glass of water. You say something like, now I'm on the spot. You know, do we have anything other than coffee around here? You know, just there's a bad pitch version, but just like, you make it a little bit more specific and a little bit more interesting, and the intention is the same. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of like what I felt about Patty and the breasts on Patty until I read the William Rowe Sasquatch Encounter and realized that it had already sort of been established. But I was like, again, if it's the 60s and you're going to lie about seeing Bigfoot, wouldn't you make him a male? You know what I mean? Wouldn't you think to make him a male first?
Right.
So I don't know. There's that level of authenticity to it.
Yeah. Yeah. And once again, like if people are going to see Turtle Man or Rabbit Man or cacti hopping across a highway or something like that, right? Like if you're trying to make up a story, why are you making up something so ridiculous no one would believe it?
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yes,
totally.
I do.
Yeah. Like if you just make up a story that people will believe.
Yeah.
You saw a Bigfoot.
And
Yeah.
this just goes to show you how many people have seen something like the Turtle Man and never told anybody about it.
100%. Yes.
And maybe don't even believe their own eyes, where they're like, that just gotta be like in the first story where the husband's
Yeah,
like,
the
"No,
husband.
it was just a guy in a suit. Like, this doesn't, I can't accept that I saw that." Yeah.
Yeah. And as the story, I mean, even, all of us and any experiencer who's had weird experiences, like as it gets further away, right? Like you're just telling the story. You're not even really remembering it anymore. And so you're adding all these other levels of your own current belief system on top of this moment that was viscerally real in the moment because it was happening. 10 years later, you're just retelling this story. And I don't know, maybe it was this weird thing that happened one time. But so you even start to doubt yourself in that story, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Last one, number 1. Are you ready?
Bring it on.
I like this one because of the implications.
Okay.
Maine, Washington County, which is on East Coast, 9:15 p.m. 2 men. It's again another beach story, except this is the first couple was on the Great Lakes. This is in the ocean. Something lifted its head out of the water, about a human head size, had glowing reflective eyes. And as they stood there, it started dragging itself out of the water on 2 arms. They backed up, watching it. And as it dragged out of the ocean, it was elongated from the torso down and didn't seem to be ending. And that's when they freaked out and ran away. So human sea serpent, mermaid, merman, merwoman, whatever, in Maine, Thursday, November 7th of this year.
If there are mer people, they are off the coast of Maine.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. I agree.
I've only been to Maine once, so I'm going to take your word for it.
That's where they are. I just have a feeling. What a weird... I was thinking it's like a human tongue,
Yeah, so they said that but when they freaked out and ran away, they said that from the torso down, it was still dragging itself out of the water. The elongated torso at that point must have been anywhere from 7 to 8 feet long.
Whoa.
Oh.
That's wild. Did
So
it have
the arms
pecs?
and the head are up on the beach.
Right. And this long sort of
And this
snake-like.
long snaky body
I don't
is
like
still
this.
dragging itself out of the water.
I don't like this. Did he have pecs? Did he have like manly pecs?
Was he
They
hot?
couldn't see.
Yeah,
It
was he
was-
hot?
It was getting dark, 9:15 p.m.
I know things
getting
were
dark.
I know things were weird around the torso, but from the torso up, was he hot?
We're just wondering.
No hair on its head. And the one guy said the eyes were glowing. The other one said reflective like an animal's.
Oh.
I do
If
not
there
like
are
this.
mermaids, if there are these sorts of creatures, they're definitely like this. Like,
Yeah.
scary. Like, they're not like Disney style, like cute and pretty. They are horrifying,
Mhm.
Yeah.
like serpentine monster creatures.
mhm.
Yeah.
Who have to
Unfocused
see
again.
they have to see in the like dark and underwater, so their eyes would be all big and weird.
Yeah.
Mhm. They got to be a powerful swimmer.
They'd have like
Yeah.
those sharp fish teeth and like lots of
Probably.
space in between,
Yeah, I asked them about the hands, and they said they couldn't see the hands. They could see the arms, but the hands were too like embedded in the sand.
Couldn't see if they're webbed. Did,
Yeah,
did,
like
did now
flipper.
let me ask you this.
hmm
And I'm not going to blame them if they didn't. Did they go back to look for like tracks or sand?
So they did go
prints?
back to the area the next day, and they couldn't find anything.
Well, the
there.
water would have washed it all away. The
washed that
tide
right
goes
away.
away with the tide.
Yeah.
Tide man.
But-
Can we call him Tide man?
Sure.
Tide man, tide
Yeah.
person, tide
Yeah.
thing.
The tide
Um,
thing.
But again, not revealing too much of their spot. But this is less than like a half a mile away from a fairly busy like place.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
So
I'll
not
tell you what,
remote in
Not
any way.
deeply rural at all. It's just
Yeah.
right there by the city.
2024 was pretty weird after all.
That's the truth.
Tide thing, rabbit men, bouncing
like it.
cacti,
Turtle guy.
turtle guy.
I like Turtle guy.
I'm very partial to these cactus. That they just sort of like
That's
met
true.
up and they were like, "Hey, how you doing?" And I'm like, boing,
My-
boing, boing, boing.
My
Just
brain
hopped
hasn't even accepted the cactus yet. The
I love
cacti.
Riley. I love the cacti too.
Yeah.
I think there's something really funny to me about like nature creatures. Like
Mhm.
they've just adapted to look like those giant cacti that are out in the desert, and that's how they've remained hidden all this time.
And
I
we
just
don't
love
pay
to they sort of
attention.
like they met up and said something to each other. It's like, what were they talking about?
So that's another part of that story that cracks me up, right? Because again, like the kids with saying, you know, that there's a tent, the fact that they saw these two bouncing cacti having some type of interaction with each other, that doesn't need to be part of the story. Like,
yeah, no, totally.
Again,
It's like walking cacti. That's enough. The fact that they're like, hey, how you doing?
waiting for the other cactus to come over and like kind of waving to him to come.
Oh, I love it. I love it. All right, let's.
Then,
Do we have another one?
No, that's it.
I don't want to steal your
more
thought.
than that?
No, I thought.
Are you not entertained?
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll be back right after this break, and we're going to talk about some ESP.
Ooh.
All right, John. Now, we actually haven't done an episode of High Strangeness about ESP. And this is more of an expert episode, you know, one of our unscripted conversations with somebody like you, who's an, you know, if you can say, are you someone who doesn't like the term paranormal expert? Do you not like the expert term?
No, I think that people get too wrapped up with that.
Okay.
Like I have friends that are comic book experts. I have friends that are like toy experts, and people always say like, "Oh, you can't know." You can know. You can. I know the history. I know the
history.
research.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So ESP stands for extrasensory phenomenon, and when I think about ESP, I think about the image from one of the Time Life books with a guy wearing a night mask, and you see like wavy lines in front of his head as he predicts what's on the, you know, it's the Peter Venkman trick where you're picturing what's on the backside of the card. Like that's the image burned in my brain about ESP. Mm-hmm. And but what is it? I wonder, what does it all entail? We're talking clairvoyance. We're talking remote viewing. We're talking about divination. I mean, psychic visions, things predicting the future, reading thoughts,
channeling. Yeah.
Okay. So to the best of your knowledge, when did ESP become a thing? Was it before or after like the spiritualist movement? When did people start going ESP? When did, you know what I mean? We're calling it this now.
Okay, so that's probably in the 1930s is when ESP really comes around. But the idea of, you know, telepathy, thought reading, that disappears into the back of human history. Like there's always been divination, there's always been fortune telling, you know, whether it's the Oracle at Delphi back in Rome or, you know, even before that. And to an extent, the idea of having a thought that is discernible outside of your mind is the concept of prayer, right? So like, as long as people have closed their eyes and thought a thought in their head, knowing that it would be divined by some larger creature or other creature outside of themselves, that's extrasensory perception, right?
Totally.
That's knowing that the thought isn't just in your head.
That's interesting. I hadn't thought about that angle of it, but it's totally true. That's exactly what it is. Yeah. You're projecting it outward and assuming a receiver.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the other thing too, right? So one of the easiest and most studied part is this idea of vision. So like when you're looking at something, obviously the light is going into your eyes and it's creating an image and it's reflecting off the back of your eyeball and then it's transmitting that image to your brain. And then supposedly your brain is reconstructing the image and showing it to you in your head. Mm-hmm. But there is this, what scientists will say is illusion of right now, it seems like you're looking at things outside of yourself.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But that would mean that your eye is projecting something out, right? And scientists say that projection out of the eye doesn't happen.
Right.
It's only taking place in your brain.
Right. They're just lenses. So it's just being received. Right. Light is just coming into our eyes.
Right. So the difficulty with that is again, one of the things that's been studied the most is the sense of being stared at. So there have been numerous scientific research studies done on the fact that a very highly statistically significant amount of people who are tested know when someone is looking at them from a distance, which means that the eye must be projecting something. Because the other thing is too, is when people have that sense that someone's looking at them, when you turn, because you have that feeling, you immediately find the person who is looking at you.
Yeah, you turn right to them.
You don't scan to look for who's looking at you. You turn and look directly into the eyes of the person who's looking at you, which means that there is a correlate between them staring at you and you being able to find them.
I mean, people literally say, I can feel them looking at me. I can feel their gaze. And, you know, people it's a creepy thing. Unless it's an amorous, in an amorous situation, it's like, we have electricity. There's something there, you know, we're connected.
Even, if you're like, here's a good example too, right? So like the idea of projecting something out, we always tend to think of it biologically, but if people ever flirt with someone, right? There's this moment where you will transmit by looking, but then to make yourself non-threatening, you immediately, as soon as they catch your gaze, you drop away, right? To show that there's like, you break that connection. So you're saying, I'm here, look at me. Okay, now I'm not staring at you because I don't want to threaten you with that stare anymore. Because eventually they start to feel threatened because the gaze becomes so intense. So again, this is a projecting out that science says doesn't happen.
Now, I don't flirt with anybody because I'm happily engaged, so I only flirt with my fiance. But it is that thing. I do have memories of sitting in across the room and looking up, and then you can feel when they're looking back at you, and then you're looking back up at them again. That's
how you can time when you're going to look at each other, right? You look at them, and then you look away when you know they're going to look back. And then you know they're not looking, so you can look back at them. And then you can gauge, when are we about to look at each other? Yeah. And then there's this moment unconsciously where you're like, okay, that's going to happen right now. And then you both look at each other, and that's the moment that it happens, right?
Yeah. I wonder if it's not so much that it's the eyes. It's like, because what you were talking about is, you have this sense that you were observing the external world. So your perception is projecting your experience of the physical world. So that's like, it's not necessarily that the eyes of the instrument that the information's coming in, but then within the mind, you're projecting the space around you and you're saying, I see this is in front of me, this person's over there. And maybe that's where that's sort of the ESP,
the mental projection, you mean.
Yeah, that's what starts linking up. And we all sort of collectively craft this reality by our perceiving it and then projecting it back out and being, I'm existing in this space now.
Well, yeah, because that would beings. That also explains that, like, we don't just see with our eyes, right? I mean, for one, obviously, people see with touch. There are people whose eyes are, there are people who are blind, and they can see just as well with touch. And there's also the idea of seeing with the mind. I was just glancing at doing a quick Googs. It looks like ESP was coined in the 1930s at Duke University by a botanist. And then bringing it back to plants, J.B. Rhine, to denote psychic abilities such as intuition, telepathy, psychometry, all this stuff. And he actually created those cards I was talking about, which were called Zener cards. I did not know that name after 8 years of whatever it is, 7 years of doing this show.
Yeah, Rhine and his wife Louisa were the first big testers of that. And Duke's, the Rhine Institute still exists. You can still go there and go to lectures.
Really?
Yep. Yeah.
How many colleges are doing like parapsychology anymore?
Maybe like half a dozen around the world. And most of them are just like studying the history of it.
Now, this is the other crazy thing is then that happens, but obviously there have been points in history where our intelligence system has taken this seriously because the CIA had Project Stargate going for decades where they were studying psychics and hiring psychics and trying to figure out how to use psychic powers as a defense weapon, or, you know, perhaps even more so.
Yeah, doing remote viewing experiments for the government in the 70s. One of the things that I find most interesting about that, so they funded it. It's a few $1 million, not a ton of money, but enough,
Okay.
right? They're interested. They've got a group of people. They develop protocols for doing remote viewing. And the idea was, how can we spy on the other countries without actually sending spies there? Can we use psychics to do that?
Mhm.
And so Project Stargate is doing that. And it seems to be giving the government usable, actionable data. So it seems like it's working. So they keep funding it for a few more years. And if you talk to some of the people involved in Project Stargate, who were the remote viewers, it just stops. Like, it just stops working totally. And years later, when they are allowed to start talking about their work for the government doing remote viewing, the story is that the Russians were doing remote viewing on the United States as well. And what had happened was, during a remote viewing session in America, there was a remote viewing session going on in Russia. And the two teams saw each other in like an astral realm.
Wow,
And,
that's so
and
cool.
realized that what they were doing was like they were creating the ability to like war and spy and conspire with. And so these remote viewers from both countries agreed in the astral plane to stop spying on each other.
Awesome.
And then it stopped
Whoa.
working, and then the programs stopped being funded.
No way.
What an amazing
That's
story.
rad.
I love it.
Because that's the other thing too, is like the idea of cops using psychics. That always bumps me, because like cops are like the most practical, down to earth, you know, like jaded, cynical, just by the nature of all the things that they see and do, and you know, and even, you know, or detectives. So it always like bumps me when there's a bunch of these like middle-aged men, and maybe it's just something that happens in TV, but it doesn't. Like, they actually use psychics. Like, why? Like, so there has to be something to this, if like even the police are using psychics to help find missing people.
It's funny because to link what you just said, detectives and police, to link it back to like the first topic when we were talking about like scopisthesia, which is the sense of being stared at, is what that's called. If you talk to private detectives and police officers, they'll tell you that, especially PIs, when you're tailing someone and when you're trying to spy on someone, you never look at the back of their head or at their back, because they'll turn around and see you. You always look at the client's feet.
Whoa, cool.
To keep
Hey,
track of them.
so
So like,
note for you stalkers out there.
there you go.
Pro
So yeah,
tip.
if you're spying on someone, you never stare at the back of their back or the back of their head, because they'll feel you looking at them. And this is known by like detectives, private investigators, and police officers.
I love that. That's so
really
cool.
interesting.
Look at their feet. Yeah, because my feet never know when anybody's looking at them, you know?
The feet don't know. I know a guy. We should get him on the show. It's just coming to my mind, but his name's Christopher Beaver. And when he was younger, he was a psychic and he worked on like high profile murder cases and stuff like that. And he stopped doing it because it got to be so overwhelming to him, but he would do remote viewing and provided like case solving credible information. I can't believe we should definitely get him on the show. I got to call him up.
Yeah.
Riley, you've been sitting on this gold all this time.
I literally just forgot. But yeah, I mean, he's a person who fully did this professionally and was working on real cases. And it was part of the playbook of what they would do to try to solve these unsolvable cases. It's really baffling.
Yeah, because that would be exhausting if you're a psychic and you're just like remote viewing
I don't
for
want to see this
bodies
anymore.
and
Yeah.
that would get dark pretty fast.
Well,
Yeah.
and when the Rhine Institute, when they were testing psychics, one of the things that they found is that people would test really well at the beginning, and then as the tests went on, they would get worse and worse and worse and worse. Like the best that people did is when you kind of brought them in and just asked them to start guessing cards. They would do great. And then once they realized they were part of a psychic experiment and you were testing their ability, it would just completely fall off. So there's almost like, you know, if you were working with the police, or if you were doing it every single day, it's not like you get stronger. It seems like it actually starts to fall off because you're like stressing that muscle that is intuitively working.
Mm-hmm.
When
makes sense.
I was a younger man, I was working on a film in Albany, and the costume designer was a medium. And the way that she would work was she would hold objects, especially like metal, like a key, car keys, or any kind of jewelry, because she always said the metal absorbed the energy
Mhm.
better. And she would run exercises with me on our downtime. She'd be like, now hold my keys and tell me, I want you to think of something from when I was a little girl, you know? And I would just be, and I remember, like, I haven't done any of this stuff since, but I remember the one thing that I kind of picked up on was like, go with the first thing that you see. Don't try to judge what you're seeing and justify it or go, no, not that. And one of the things that I saw was like her hiding under the bed as a little girl, and there were two men in the room, and she was watching their feet, and they were looking for her. And it should have been a scary thing, but it wasn't a scary thing. It was nighttime, though. And she was like, that was very good, Michael. She was like, my father was a policeman, and when I was a little girl and I knew Daddy was coming home, he'd always come home at the end of his beat with his partner, and I would go hide under the bed, and both of them would come in still dressed in uniform and go, where's Alice? Where is she? Alice, where are you? And that was like the ritual that she used to have with her dad. So she's like, you need to keep doing this. And of course, I never did it again.
Latent psychic ability here.
Yeah, I was like, hey, I got a hit. And I remember thinking, don't bring up a little girl hiding under the bed. That's weird. But I was like, no. Just say what's coming to you in the moment and see if it hits.
Yeah. So that's one of the, like, all the psychics and mediums and everyone that I've talked to, like we all receive information in different ways. You know, some people are better with sound, some people are better with smells, some people are better. And so the way the information presents itself to you, you have to be willing to say this crazy thing, because it's presenting it to you in a way that not only it might seem crazy to you, but the other person will understand. So because we experience our world our way, when information is given to us in a way that is for someone else, it seems insane. So there's a podcast called Web Crawlers that Jessica and I love. Years ago, we were doing like ESP, and I was telling them that. And I said, so I'll tell you right now. I was like, I'll clear my mind, blank slate. And because it was the three girls who run the podcast. And I said, I'll just tell you the first thing that pops into my mind. And the first thing that popped into my mind were the chipmunks. And I was like, so the first thing that popped into and I told them, I said, the first thing that pops into my head for the three of you is the chipmunks, like Alvin, Simon, and Theodore. And all three of them gasp. And the two of the girls had worked on voices for the Alvin and Chipmunks movie.
No.
And the third girl who didn't work on the movie, her father's name was Alvin. And so, like, this thing that seemed wild to me presented itself perfectly to get a hit off all three of them.
Wow.
Right.
That's crazy. Yeah. That is crazy.
But I had to be willing to just like say Alvin and the Chipmunks. Like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Does this mean anything to you? Do you so do you feel like, do you go through life feeling like you've got a little bit of ESP active in your life,
as much
John?
as anybody does. As much as anybody does.
Because you think this is like an inherent ability in most of us.
Yes, for sure.
And
I think we all tap into that field of a wider consciousness. Some people are just better receivers at it.
What about shifting gears just a little bit? Edgar Casey, that's a name that comes up a lot, or has come up in the past on the show. In a recent Patreon unlock, friend of the show, Dave Keith, and I had gone to Edgar Casey's grave in Hopkinsville. He was called the Sleeping Prophet, and he did a lot of remote viewing. He was always trying to find what was buried in the right hand or the front right leg of the Sphinx. Like, was there any validity to a guy like Edgar Casey and his remote viewing?
I think so. I think that I've met, over the past 34 years, I've met thousands of psychics and mediums. And I think that for many of them, there is something really wild going on. They do have some type of ability or understanding of these supernatural processes. The problem is, and I think Casey's a good example, I think that it works for a while, kind of like what I was saying with Ryan, and then it like doesn't. And you don't really get to pick and choose. And when you put yourself in, when you become like a personage in the field of psychic phenomena and psychic powers, you have to produce all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so then maybe it's not working so well, so you just say some stuff and hope that it's okay, and until you get the next real message. But then you're starting to fabricate stuff. And so then all your other claims start to, like, their validation and their validity like starts to fall. I think that happens with Casey. I think that Casey is doing something really cool and wild, and then he gets really well known for it, and maybe it starts to fall off. We see that as he moves in his life. He moved a couple times back and forth. And it seems like his powers weren't very consistent.
Interesting.
Mm.
But I think that, again, from the psychics and mediums I know, the ones that say that they're consistent are usually the worst ones.
Good tip.
That is good. That's good to know. But
I
that,
mean, for the fact that most psychics will tell you, like, I can't get specific. Like, they can tell you, like, a father has died, or a brother has passed away, or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they say, I can't give you like specific lottery numbers. But in the same like session, they'll tell you like who died on the 4th of May. Like, either you can be that specific and you're just calling out like the 4th of May. That's very specific, right?
Mm-hmm.
So why can't you give me the lottery numbers? Like,
right.
And it just seems to be like this self-limiting thing that they have. Either you can or you can't.
Well, if you think of it as like tuning an antenna, it's like you can tune into radio stations, but you can't choose the song. You know, it's just like you're opening up and you're tuning into that frequency, and whatever comes in is what comes in. You're not really in control of the source of the signal. You know,
man, whoever can figure out how to be both the radio and the DJ, they're gonna be a millionaire.
Yeah, it's Spotify, and they ripped us all off.
It's kind of true. Tenney, you teased, we're getting a little long in the episode, but we have a little bit more time. You teased that you might guide us through a remote viewing exercise. Is that something that we can do on the show today?
You have pen and paper?
I got a pen. I got a pen right here, and I got a pad of paper off camera.
For class, teach.
Okay, usually if I teach remote viewing, it takes like a couple days. So we're going to do this in like 30 seconds.
Great. I love it.
If you don't do well,
you have to not try, right? You got to just let it happen.
You have to not try. Just let it be loose. So
I'm opening my third eye.
Don't try.
Okay.
Don't try. As a matter of fact, I'm going to keep talking because part of you listening to me is keeping you from thinking about what you're about to do.
Okay.
What I want you to do is, like, within the next, in less than 3 seconds, write your name just as fast as you can on that piece of paper. Just scribble your name as fast as you can on that piece of paper, and then just be done. You're done. Even if you didn't finish the whole name, that's fine. Right. And now what I want you to do in like 2 seconds is a little piece of paper here to give you an example.
Okay.
In like 2 seconds, I just want you up at the top. I just want you to scribble like that, like really fast. Just scribble.
Okay.
Got it?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, this is going to be fun because What's Up Weirdo? We did a remote viewing experiment like a year and a half ago. And I put targets in these folders like a year and a half ago, and we didn't get to using these 4. So I have no idea what I put in these anymore.
Fun.
Okay.
So I don't even know what's in these right now.
Okay.
So I want you to write down these numbers. Okay. On your piece of paper, just write down
like
these
in a column
numbers.
or across.
It doesn't matter.
And people can do this at home too. If you're listening, you can do this.
Yep, you can do this at home.
And get a piece of paper and a pen and play along with us.
Yeah. And so there's numbers on this first folder right there. And so I'm going to read them to you. Just write them. I want the numbers on this folder to be on your paper too.
Okay.
First of all, I want an H.
Okay.
And then a 9, 6, 1, 7, 0, 5, 5. Got it?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now, those are the same numbers that's on this folder. So what is in this folder is going to be on your paper in some way, shape, or form. The first thing I want you to do is I want you, just for a moment, don't take too long, literally 5 or 6 seconds. Think about what smells. you're getting from that? Just right now, what kind of smell in your brain? Just think smell, and then what kind of smell, and write down what those smells are.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's 2 or 3, just take a couple seconds.
Done.
Done? Riley, you done?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. Okay, now I want you to take the same amount of time, just 5 or 6 seconds, and I want you to write down the kind of textural feeling on your skin. The feeling on your skin. What kind of feeling do you have? And you should be done by now.
Okay.
Be done.
Okay.
Just write something down.
Okay.
Don't think about it too much. Now, I want you to write down 2 or 3 things that are visually representative of something. Just write down the words of something visually representative of what's in your brain right now.
Okay.
Just write down those words.
Okay.
1 or 2. You should be done by now. You done?
Done.
Riley, you done? Good. All right. Now, going to take a minute here. I'm going to talk the entire time you do this. I'm going to give you probably 30 seconds. I just want you to draw. Now, don't feel like you have to draw an object. If you start to draw something and want to go draw something else, move away and start drawing something else. But start drawing right now. And the whole time I'm talking, just draw. And if you start a line and want to move to a new line, that's fine. If you start to draw something you need to feel like it's completed, move on to another thing. Like, just keep drawing. Don't really let your mind, keep listening to what I'm saying too while you're drawing, and just let your hand be guided around the page and just draw as many little things as you can, or big things as you can. It doesn't matter, as intricate as you want or as simple as you want. And like I said, you can start and stop any new shapes that you want, but just draw little shapes, symbols, things that you think might be relevant. They don't have to be relevant to the sounds or the sights or the touches that you wrote down earlier. And then I want you to be done. Are you done? Lift up your pencils or your pens. You're done.
Okay.
Got it?
Yep.
All right.
Pencils down.
Let's see what happened here.
Okay, great. I'm so excited. I love this.
All right. So let me have first. Riley, what type of smells did you have?
I wrote down pine, earth, and grass.
Pine, earth, and grass. And then Michael?
Pickle, salty.
Pickle, salty. Sights or things that you see, words that you wrote down?
Riley, go first.
I wrote bright light.
Bright light. What'd you write down, Michael?
Bus, crowd, rocket.
Bus, crowd, rocket. And then we also did feeling.
We did what?
I wrote down the tactile.
Like touch,
yeah.
feeling, tactile.
I wrote down grit and rough.
Grit and rough.
I put down feather and then slick, which are contradictory.
Feather.
Kind of.
Slick.
That feeling of a...
Mm.
And then let's see your pictures up there.
Okay, I'm holding up.
Scribbly.
Riley, you go first.
Okay, so
now,
I kind of went for these sort of
tilt it down a little bit,
almost flower-like shapes,
I
guess.
I like it.
And then whatever
like
that little, maybe it's cornucopia-ish. I was just sort of moving the pen around.
Yeah,
okay.
no, it's great.
Trying not
Do you
to
want the
think.
scribble that we did at the top too, at the beginning?
The
I'm
initial
just looking at what you got on your page.
Okay. So let's see. Let me see here. I had a man, I saw a man and a woman with like 1960s clothes, like looking off,
cool.
like a pillbox hat and like she's kind of dressed like Jacqueline Onassis Kennedy, and a man with a hat. And then I just saw like a sea serpent. I saw a moon. I saw a lot of stars, moon. I saw water dripping, and then a baby crying.
All right. I have no idea what
Covering all my bases. Okay,
I like
so
your
what's
drawing,
it? So
just like aesthetically on its own. It's very cool.
thanks. It'll be your next tattoo.
Might be.
Well, there's nothing.
Depends
in
on what's in this envelope.
There's
Oh,
nothing
wait,
in
there
there.
is.
Oh.
Wait. I picked the wrong one. That's
Oh,
fine.
okay. Oh boy, that was really gonna backfire.
Sorry,
It was empty.
I moved things. Sorry.
It's funny that you say bright light, Riley, because I think I was seeing like a rocket, like a glare, like an explosion. So I put rocket because I was thinking of the booster. So I was kind of seeing a bright light too.
All right. So you know what was in here?
Okay.
What's in there?
It was a picture of the Hollywood Forever Cemetery.
Whoa. Well,
Ooh.
way off.
No,
I
I,
wrote
don't
down-
think so.
Okay.
Earth and grass, dude.
You nailed it.
Earth and grass, pine. There's probably pine trees in there.
There are.
Oh, sure.
Definitely.
Pickled, like people are pickling in their
Formaldehyde.
formaldehyde.
Pickled.
Pickled. No, I'm trying to figure out.
Stars. There are stars in the Hollywood Forever.
Yeah. So wait,
Cemetery.
let me see your pictures again.
Okay. It's a man and a woman over their shoulder. A big tall thing that I interpreted as a little, like a snake or serpent head, a baby.
Yeah, I think that. So like if I look at stuff as a remote viewer, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if I look at like Michael's drawing,
Mm-hmm.
what you thought were raindrops, right?
Yep.
Is that infinity symbol at the top?
Okay.
Because you got a raindrop
Yep.
there and you have a raindrop there.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So you
Yep.
got the raindrops at the top, right?
And it's
And then-
generally where it is in the picture too.
yeah. And then you've got like the giant pole, but you've got
Yep.
it as like a dinosaur head
Yep.
on there.
I can
right?
see that. And the
Mhm.
stars could be the palm tree tops.
Well, the stars could be the palm trees, and you actually have famous people, because you were saying like that seems like Jackie Onassis. Like you
Uh-huh.
have famous people in yours. Now, Riley, I see yours too, right? So you've got you've tried to get those palm trees too. You've got it as the
Yeah, right.
cornucopia. Yep,
Right
right,
here.
there.
With that even
Yeah, for sure.
tree shape on
And
top.
then
There's another one here.
yeah, and I think that
Whoa.
that infinity symbol is your spiral at the very top middle.
That's the first thing
Oh
I
yeah.
drew.
You can,
Yeah.
I also drew
Right?
this as my scribble, if that helps anybody. It's a little
I tried not to
squiggly
look
with
at what I was
lines.
drawing too.
I don't know if there's anything in there like that.
I think you guys did really good for 30 seconds.
Okay,
of training.
Wow.
What if I had just drawn like a perfect
Cool.
rendition of the Hollywood Forever Cemetery? Or just like, or just millennials watching a movie in a graveyard.
You know what's crazy? So like
Well,
just
that-
talking
Wait,
about
bright light too. It's like
Bright
go towards
light.
the light.
bright light.
And because we
Yeah.
Like,
we do go
the
see
whole
movies
thing.
there, and the
That's
people
true. The
sitting
projector.
watching something could have been watching a movie there too. I'm just gonna say
Oh
that.
yeah.
Mhm.
And you had a bus and a crowd going there.
A bus, crowd. Yep.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Wow.
yeah, pickles. Maybe someone's eating a pickle. Maybe having a
All
good
right.
time. Maybe.
You know what? So it's what's really silly about remote viewing is sometimes like I did this at a Strange Escapes event in Mount Washington at one of Amy Bruni's events. And the picture that I used was of Giant Rock, where all the UFO conventions used to happen in the 1950s. And nobody drew the giant rock, but almost everybody drew flying saucers.
Whoa. Fun.
Now, this was like after we had done rounds and rounds of this, and they were getting better and better. Because you would, if we do this, keep doing it, you would get better and better and better.
Mhm.
Which is the super strange thing about remote viewing. If I spent 2 days teaching you guys how to actually do this, you'd fucking lose your minds at how good you are
for
at
a
doing it.
while, and then we would get really bad at it because we
Yeah,
burn
no,
out
you
that
would.
muscle.
Yep, you'd burn out that muscle. But it's really crazy that you get anything when you do it, especially for two people who have never done it before, that you get something that can be equated to something else.
That's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Especially if I
Yeah.
don't know it, because I can't send it to you psychically.
Right. You're not trying to like influence us in any
Right.
way.
I don't know. I literally have forgotten what's in this. And last thing, I know we're running out of time. We had at the What's Up Weirdo event when we did remote viewing, we had this guy who was not hitting anything. Everything he was doing was wrong. And so when I got home and I started typing up the results to put them in a graph and look at them, he was wrong because he was one photo ahead of every photo.
No.
Whoa.
Awesome.
So he was remote viewing the future picture.
Wow.
Whoa.
That's wild.
So he was getting them all wrong, but he had gotten them except all but one. He had
He
gotten
was
all but
too
one.
good.
He was too good.
He was ahead of his time, literally.
Yeah. He was remote viewing the future.
I love it. Well, Tenney, you've done it again. You've come and you've entertained and you've charmed us, and we're back under your spell. You're going to stick around for the end of this episode.
Yes.
But we're going to quickly thank some people who have joined us recently over at BCC, The Other Side, the parallel dimension of Bigfoot Collectors Club. Why don't we do some Patreon shout-outs? You ready for this, Riley?
I am ready.
Oh, man, I was born ready for this. Can you tell?
See if I can thank the people before you say their names.
Oh, yeah, here we go. Coffee and Amp Contemplation Cosmeteer.
Thanks, Coffee. Welcome to the ranks.
Meets Bigfoot Bigfoot's Ghost.
Bigfoot's Ghost. Thank you.
Clara.
Thanks, Clara.
Samuel Bennett.
Thanks,
Cosmeteer.
Samuel. Welcome to the ranks.
Kim.
Thanks, Kim.
Krista M.
Thanks, Krista.
Meg.
Thanks, Meg.
Hopefully not the Meg.
I mean, if it is, I'm glad you're listening.
I'm glad you're listening, but go easy on
Please
all
don't
those
attack
people.
our underwater pace.
Blake Honicki.
Thanks, Blake.
And Mandy Holland.
Thanks, Mandy.
All right. You can join all of those new friends that you've just met over at patreon.com/BigfootCollectorsClub, where we have 3 exclusive bonus episodes every month. You can access the entire archive, which is well over 275 episodes now. You can upgrade to the Cosmeteer membership, where you'll get 3 exclusive scores from Riley every month, plus ad-free episodes like the one that you're listening to right now. And you know what? Tenney, WooPod, they got a Patreon. John gets on there and does like fun things with everybody. So check out What's Up Weirdo. Go hang out at their Patreon. Tenney, what else where can they find you?
I'm reworking the Weird Lectures website right now.
Okay.
So it's all What's Up Weirdo.
Awesome. Riley, where can people find you?
Peace Drone on Instagram. Peace Drone in some variation on YouTube. I'm occasionally posting things over there.
Oh, yeah, you make fun
and
little...
of course, on the BCC YouTube is the best place to find us. Like this episode, you can look at our faces and see us. You can project a reality based on the light that hits your eyes. But
show everybody your nails because they look great.
Oh yeah, you can see my cool new nails.
They're very cool.
Thanks.
Head over to Bigfoot Collectors Club on YouTube. Like and subscribe, please. Okay, true or false, Tenney? This is the last episode that you'll be recording with us today. True or false?
That's false.
That is correct, because you're going to be crossing over with us to the other side right now, where we are coming back 2025, kicking it off with Monster Showdown 6. Sorry, 5. No, we're not jumping ahead to 6 yet. So we'll see you over there on Friday. If we don't see you over on the other side, we'll see you back here next week for an all-new episode of BCC. Until then, good night.
And go get regressed. That remote viewing honestly kind of blew my mind. That's pretty wild. The more I'm looking at this, I'm like, I do kind of see that image.
I see it. Listen, you say a palm tree, I say a dinosaur. Bigfoot Collectors Club is produced and engineered by Riley Bray and executive produced by Riley Bray and Michael McMillan. Our theme song, Come Alone, is by Suneaters, courtesy of Lotuspool Records. Follow Suneaters on Spotify. For 3 bonus episodes every month and ad-free episodes, check out BCC The Other Side at patreon.com/BigfootCollectorsClub.